All right. Thanks everyone for joining today for this info session on this very brand new opportunity from HUD, the CoCBuilds funding opportunity. Basically, just some housekeeping today. If you have any questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat and then we will address them at the end, once we get to the end of the slides. If there is something super urgent, feel free to raise your hand. We can keep it pretty casual in here, and someone on MAG staff will make sure to call on you. I've got Dylan Belmont here, as well as Brian Gruters from the MAG staff on this call. So any of us definitely here to answer questions as best we can. As I mentioned before, this is a very new HUD opportunity. So we are going to share the information we have with you so far today, keeping in mind that HUD has only released the initial announcement for this yet, or so far. And so there's still lots to learn. But let's dive right in. So today, what I have to go over with you all is just giving a brief overview of the opportunity itself. Then we're going to go through some application details that might be good for you to flag should you be interested in applying for this. We're going to go over sort of a rough timeline of what the MAG staff is thinking for how we are going to carry this process through in our community, and talk about what next steps we do have so far. So to start with that overview, I have a direct quote here from HUD giving us this basic understanding of what we can conceptualize as this CoCBuilds NOFO. This looks very different if you are used to that annual notice of funding opportunity that usually comes through a COC from HUD. This is really focusing on building physical capacity for permanent supportive housing in our community. So it really is focusing on increasing that affordable housing supply, ensuring access to supportive services and public services, and also partnering with housing, health, and service agencies. So it's really trying to answer that question of how do we increase housing opportunities in our community and increase that supply of permanent supportive housing units. This opportunity is also really encouraging coordination between housing providers, healthcare organizations, and social service providers. And a reminder that this is focused on PSH, that permanent supportive housing intervention specifically. So housing must accommodate and focus on those with high needs and disabilities. So then, some logistics for us. We know from HUD that there is $175 million available nationally for this funding opportunity. HUD is anticipating about 25 awards nationally for this. In Maricopa, in our regional COC, based on the amount of funding we get for our usual annual notice of funding opportunity from HUD, we have $10 million available for us for this special NOFO. And something to note is that no more than 30% of the funds can be used for non-capital costs. So basically, this breaks down to no more than 20% of the funds are used for rental assistance, operational cost, or supportive services, and no more than 10% can go to admin. So really the bulk of this is for those capital costs. And the projected dates for this project would be October 2025 through 2030. So you can sort of see based on the anticipated operation dates that HUD would want this project to kick off. This would be something that would, likely either need to hit the ground running immediately or have been in the works already. This is an incredibly fast turnaround for such a large project. Some information on those who are eligible to apply. So whether you would be the main recipient or subrecipients, this is the list, pretty much the typical list that HUD provides for those who can apply. As a note, for-profit entities are ineligible to apply for grants. They cannot be either the main recipient or a subrecipient. So let's get to some details of the application itself and what we know HUD is asking from applicants. So an overview of the narrative portions. These are sort of musts that would need to be provided and answered in an application. Certifying consistency with a consolidated plan of where the build would be located. Questions on advancing racial equity, affirmative marketing and outreach of the project, experience promoting racial equity, and affirmatively furthering fair housing. So we know those are major categories by which HUD is going to be explicitly judging applications on. And something to keep in mind when we think about the right applicant for our community is that HUD has also outlined some special considerations for applications, and these would get some additional bonus points that would not explicitly come through the narrative, and that is those who are putting new PSH units on tribal reservations or trust lands, as well as those who are incorporating one of three various environmental justice components, such as mitigating exposure to environmental and health hazards, improving protection from and resilience to environmental harms, or overcoming prior disinvestment in environmental infrastructure. So those are just some special points when it comes to what HUD is looking for. All of these narratives are further detailed in the funding overview that is on grants.gov, that is linked on these slides. So you'll be able to look in more detail in what HUD is asking for there. They have laid out a fairly clear rubric of what is getting what points. And we'll get to that in a second. Right here. Here are the rating factors. So like I mentioned, HUD has laid out a rubric for us and how an application would be scored. And it consists of these 11 factors, the most significant category being this development experience and leveraging, which would account for 24 of the 100-point rubric. So this is an extremely important part of the application, followed by the managing homeless projects. Previous experience with development is required for this application. An applicant would need to show and discuss at least 3 projects that they have developed, and also have experience managing at least 4 properties, administering programs to those experiencing homelessness. So there's a decent amount of history and experience an applicant or an applicant with multiple subrecipients would need to exhibit when applying for this. So definitely, and those are important pieces to keep in mind of thinking whether or not it makes sense for you to be a recipient or subrecipient in an application here. So next, what does our timeline look like for this? So this opportunity was announced at the end of July. We are in August now. So we are in this current stage of communication and interest. So we have announced this opportunity and discussed it with the CoC board. We are having this info session now, and we are in this period of gathering interest and having a better understanding from the community. Who do we have out there who could put forth a strong application to represent our community? Something to note about this opportunity is, and how it differs from the usual annual NOFO, is that there will only be a single application representing the Maricopa Regional CoC. So it won't exist in that same way where we have multiple projects that we prioritize and put forth, but there will be just one application that MAG, as the collaborative applicant, would submit on behalf of an applicant or a group of applicants and subrecipients putting forth a single application. So next in September, we would move forward in a proposal and review period. So potentially an RFP process, some sort of way in which we are gathering information to be able to assess who would be best to represent our community and select that applicant or applicant group. And then in October, we're thinking that is around the time where the actual application to HUD would be completed. And then in November, we begin application review. So as the collaborative applicant, MAG would be responsible for reviewing this application before submission. And then we would submit by November 21st, which is the deadline. So we do have some time here, but we know it is going to fly by. So next steps. Essentially what we are thinking is there's still a lot we need to find out about what this project could look like for our community and explore those potential uses of funding, continue researching this opportunity. HUD has a session planned for tomorrow that they announced last week that will be like HUD's info session version of this opportunity. And so we're really hoping that we get some more information and clarification from them during that info session. And gathering interest from potential applicants that will develop in some sort of formal way, whether it is an intent to apply that we have posted or a full RFP process. It's really going to be dictated as to how many groups in the community are interested in this and how competitive it may be to figure out who this main applicant will be to represent our community. We will be finalizing the application process and timeline to get it a little bit more narrowed down than just general months in which these processes are operating. And in the meantime, the resources that we have available are what is on grants.gov. So you're able to go check it out and read the opportunity for yourself. It's about 50 pages and highly recommend you do so if you are interested in applying for this. We hope to have more information on our website after that info session with HUD later this week. And you can reach out to any of us with questions you have, but hope to use the rest of the time here today to talk about this further with you, answer any questions you have, or write down those questions in case it is something we're not sure of yet, and make sure that we bring it to that info session with HUD tomorrow. So with that, I can take any questions. And I see we do have one in the chat. So yes, for-profits are not qualified. However, yes, if there can be ways in which associations with nonprofit organizations could qualify you to be a subrecipient. We just have to make sure that all of that is cleared through HUD's regulations if trying to operate in that way. Any other questions from the group? Will NEPA be triggered? Jessica, I'm not sure. That's something that would have to look into. Okay. If there are not any further questions, then we can close out the session for today. Really appreciate everyone's interest in this and hope that as a community, we are able to put forward a really strong application on behalf of the Maricopa COC. This is a really interesting opportunity from HUD. Have not seen something like this from them before. As you can tell, it will be highly, highly competitive. So want to make sure that whatever we do put forth is the strongest that our community has to offer. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today. Please reach out with any questions. I will email these slides out to the registration list and see y'all later.